Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 92 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. It's a late one here in Vomitorium. Where are we?
Vomitorium South.
Man, it's
deep in an underground, hermetically sealed bunker.
That's right. That's where we are. It's late. My name is still Dr. Jeff Winkle, and I'm here across the table from my good friend, most of the time, Dr. David Noe. How are you feeling this night? I'm kind of feeling like you. I'm feeling a little kind of cranky tonight.
I'm heading in the other direction.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Well,
on top of my typical crankiness,
yes.
I've layered some joviality.
Wow, excellent. Keep it going.
It's like an ice cream sandwich. It's crankiness, joviality, crankiness.
So the joviality is the creamy center.
That's correct.
In that sandwich.
I like that you are wearing a black T-shirt tonight, like I am.
That's right. I'm feeling like Johnny Cash. That's right.
The man in black.
Yeah. So explain the joviality. Did you have a great day or something?
I had a nice day. It was a long day. I got a lot of exercise in. Had a lot of different obligations and responsibilities. Mm-hmm. This was kind of tacked on the end, and I was very worried that I wasn't going to be able to bring any entertainment or education to the people who subject themselves to this drivel.
Well, it is early, so we'll see where this goes.
But then when I showed up and found you in a bad mood, it tipped me in the other direction.
Funny how that goes.
Yes. I'm a contrarian.
Yeah, I got you.
You're a bit of a contrarian, aren't you?
I am. So I'm trying to kind of find my balance here, because me playing grumpy guy is it's a
stretch.
It's a new role for me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I had a long day. It was actually a good day.
Can I ask about your day, Jeff?
Yes, it was a good day.
How was your day?
It was a long day, and I was with lots of children and
yours,
mine, and children not belonging to me, but under whose
children of a lesser neighbor.
Yeah, something like that, right? So I was in charge of them, taking them to the beach and to this and that. And
it's a movie reference, Jeff.
And, I'm sorry, what was it?
Children of a Lesser God. You don't know that movie?
I know it, right?
Oh my goodness!
I can't stop on every one of your puns, Dave. We would be here for hours.
Goodness,
right?
You're cranky. That was a pop culture reference. I was trying to throw you something delightful.
Oh, okay. Well,
anyway,
keep trying.
Okay.
So the kids were great today, but just being around young children all day is an energy suck. And I'm a hardcore introvert, and so I need like alone time to recharge, and I didn't get any of that today. So I think that explains the grumpiness today.
Yes. I got lots of alone time.
You did.
I got a lot of walking in. I had some social time too.
Okay, keep rubbing it in.
But speaking about alone versus social,
yes,
we're going to talk tonight about Dido and Aeneas.
Dido and Aeneas, right?
In the middle of the book, they're together, and by the end of the book, they are alone.
They are alone, right? And some of them not alive.
Right. And speaking of approximately one half of the couple, speaking of alone time, we've got no shout outs.
No, not again, really?
That's true. We have scraped the bottom of the barrel.
We've gotten a lot of wonderful responses via email.
That's
recently.
right.
I've been pleased by the things coming in. And so I think we've got some in the chamber. We just can't pull the trigger yet, right?
That's right. Didn't you tell me moments before we began recording that you check your email twice per week?
Twice a week. I think that's healthy.
Maybe so.
Right? You don't want to be obsessive.
But how would you know if we have emails coming in?
I glanced. I see things. I notice things. Right?
Okay, yeah. We've gotten some really nice correspondence. The folks have not yet agreed to have their name read on air.
Right.
Understandably. Mm-hmm. So we'll hold off on that.
Yeah, I think that's right. But Dave, what are we talking about tonight?
Again, it is Virgil's Aeneid.
We're gonna get to the end of book 4?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Book 4.
All right.
Yes, and to set the stage, set the table, carrying on with the culinary metaphor, which we have chosen as the guiding pattern for the whole production. Mm-hmm. We've put out the aperitifs.
Yep.
We've got the entree. Now comes the grisly dessert.
Yes, this is not the kind of dessert that I would want to be served.
No.
Right?
What is your least favorite dessert?
Oh, I gotta say, that's an excellent question.
Thank you. That may be the first compliment I've gotten today. No, it's probably the second.
I think it's when dessert rolls around and then somebody wheels out a cart that's full of Jell-O.
Jell-O.
Jell-O with like a little whipped cream on top.
Do you remember when we were undergraduates at what used to be called Calvin College?
I do remember.
Yes, and do you remember the dining hall called Knollcrest, or sometimes called Commons?
Very well.
And do you remember what dessert was? The audience is not going to believe this. It was a small ceramic white plate on which there was a piece of lettuce And on the piece of lettuce was a Jell-O cube
Yes.
with a grape suspended in the center of it.
I remember it very well. I never touched it.
That was dessert.
Did you ever go for it?
I was occasionally that desperate.
Did you eat the lettuce?
Maybe. It reminds me of how Charles Darwin described the human cell back in the 1860s.
How?
Something along the lines of a shapeless blob of albuminous gel.
Really?
Yes, that's very close. It's very close to how he described the human cell,
My goodness.
which is ironic given its extraordinary complexity. But,
Right.
But when I read that phrase, I thought, I know what he's talking about. It's that dessert they used to serve as an undergrad.
Exactly.
That's
Except once you
it.
dug into that, there was nothing complex about it.
No,
at
no,
all.
just the grape at the center.
Right. Yeah. So I guess in some
To
ways,
take it back around,
please. Yes.
there is complexity here in this dessert,
a lot of complexity.
although it's grim.
It's grim, right? So this would be, it's at a glance, it would look like that cube of Jell-O on
That's
the
right.
lettuce, but there's a whole lot more to it.
That's right. There's what you may want to call grimplexity.
Oh, nice. Excellent. All right. I'm warming up a bit.
Are you warming
up? Before we dive in, though, least favorite dessert? You want to offer that to the audience?
Yeah, I was thinking, that's a tough one. I don't like dessert a lot. It's much easier for me to talk about the things I like with dessert. Fruit pies, sophisticated chocolate things.
Yeah.
I don't like anything that has too much sweetness in it.
I gotcha.
I like things with a little bit of bitterness. So probably certain kinds of cake. I don't like things that are cloying, right? Come on and just state your flavor.
Oh, I see.
Lay it on me. Don't try to trick me and lead me around.
Right, exactly.
Who wants to be manipulated by a dessert?
That's right. Some impertinent pastry.
Correct.
Yeah.
Get to the point. That and cinnamon.
Cinnamon, good, bad? What?
Good.
Good, yes. Okay.
I consume, I think, a lot more cinnamon than most people.
I'm with you there. Dark chocolate with the bitterness?
No. I used to eat quite a bit of that, but when I put cinnamon on, oatmeal or something like
Yeah.
that, I sometimes use a shovel. That's
you
the amount.
pile it on.
I do like it.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Excellent. Hey, you got our opening quote?
Oh, what is this podcast about again?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're talking about food. We're
Talking about food as a metaphor for our tour through the classics.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
The opening quote this evening is from The Art of the Aeneid by William S. Anderson. This is a work we have mentioned before. It was first published in 1969.
a slim volume.
A slim volume with, it's published not by our sponsor, but by Borghese Carducci, another fine publisher of classics. It's got a kind of a cartoonish cover.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'm
You're
not liking
it.
that. No,
yeah,
that's
we
good.
probably shouldn't throw the cover under the bus, but here goes anyway. This is from page 51. This is quite a helpful quote, I would say. The long, final, tragic movement begins with a pair of balanced speeches, first Dido's, then Aeneas's. Dido's is introduced by a simile which compares her to a bacchant racing wildly, fired to irrationality through the town. The contrast with Aeneas's pained but controlled response to the necessity of departure is patent. Signs of irrationality appear here and there in her speech, as when she accuses Aeneas of intending to slip away without speaking to her like a treacherous dog. But for the most part, she appeals for pity in the name of their love, and she deservedly wins sympathy. In fact, Aeneas does deeply pity and love her. Virgil's introduction could not be more lucid on this point. However, he cannot indulge his feelings, and it would not be fair or even considerate to indulge Dido's appeal for pity, not if she is ever going to face the fact of his necessary going. And just this last part. The apparent coldness and rationality of Aeneas's words, then, represent a heroic achievement on his part. The conquest of his own passion and the concerned desire to bring Dido back to reality. He talks facts, not feelings. They were not married, he insists, and he never tried to deceive her on this point.
So he calls that a heroic achievement.
That's right.
Man, that's really interesting.
It's stoic.
It's
right?
very stoic.
It's stoic.
It's right. It's the mastery over one's
Correct.
passions. Right?
Apatheia, right, is the Greek word. Not having any pathos, no feeling, right? Different than the Epicureans. We can send people back to the whole enchilada, or whatever we called those episodes.
That's right. That's right.
Epicureans, ataraxia, right?
Yeah.
Nothing disturbs you. Stoics, no feeling. And I guess, again, this is why people don't really like Aeneas as a main character.
Right.
Because you can't sympathize with a person who has no feelings.
Yeah.
Or has conquered them to the point where they don't play a role in his decision-making.
Right. Yeah, I think very few people would read Aeneas's words to Dido and at the end of it say, "Wow, that was heroic."
What an accomplishment.
What an accomplishment, right? So I mean, we've recognized in the last few episodes that Aeneas is in kind of this impossible bind, right? He is driven on by a fate that he is out of his control, right? And he's pulled this way and that by different voices. He's dealt with things like the death of his father. He's trying to kind of manage the needs of his people at the same time, and trying to attend to his own kind of personal needs.
And he's worried about his son. Don't forget that.
Of course, right.
Ascanius is the future.
Right. So I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to feel sorry for Aeneas,
Yes.
or to at least to understand kind of where he's at. But at the same time, this speech, which we'll get to, it's hard to kind of read that and not say, wow, that's cold.
Yes.
That's really cold in the moment of what he's dealing with and what Dido is feeling.
But this does raise the question, how is one supposed to respond to a crazed lover if the answer is no?
This is true. Right.
I've never been in that situation.
Right, yeah.
But I can imagine Aeneas being in that situation. She loves him, and she's at the brink of total insanity, and soon she'll be pushed over the edge.
Right.
What kind of a response on his part would be satisfying?
Yeah, I think it's by the time this is happening, by the time we're getting these speeches, it's too late, right? It's too late for anything. I think we can explore this later, but for all of Aeneas's future being governed and steered by this fate, does that mean that the incident in the cave had to happen?
Yes.
Like that they both could have kind of stepped away.
Right.
He could have said no.
Right.
He could have said no in that instance, and then they never would have to dealt with any of this kind of thing.
So
right?
you're blaming him?
I'm not a huge fan of Aeneas in this particular book, right? I think you can make too much of Dido as just kind of a crazed lunatic.
Okay.
I think that there's many lines where, especially where, then there's a part in book 4 where Virgil breaks in.
Yes,
and he
the
says,
apostrophe.
and he
I
says,
noticed that.
Dido, what did you hear? What did you see in that
Right.
moment? Aeneas doesn't get that.
No.
So there's a lot of things I think from Virgil himself that's saying this is where the sympathy should go.
Right.
Even though Aeneas has to fulfill what he has to fulfill.
Right.
Right.
Excellent point. And if I can be just a little pedantic,
Yes.
as is my wont.
Right.
Right. WONT, by the way. It's not WAND.
We gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
The apostrophe, right, is the figure of speech in which the author talks to one of the characters.
Yes.
And like you said so well, he speaks to Dido, Virgil does. He does not speak to Aeneas.
No. And if we use a Homeric comparison, where there's only a couple of characters that get that second person,
Right.
It's Eumaeus.
Oh, yes.
Eumaeus in the Odyssey, and in the Patroclus in the Iliad, and also Menelaus in the Iliad.
Menelaus.
Which
See,
is-
I didn't remember Menelaus.
It's very odd, but generally speaking,
Now who's the pedant?
apostrophe with Patroclus and Eumaeus, it's not just the author breaking in. There's it's often interpreted as being there's affection.
Right.
Right?
Well, in part because there's the notion that Eumaeus was Homer's father.
Yeah.
That's one tradition.
Right.
So he's speaking to someone who's very, very close to him personally.
Exactly right. Yeah. So interesting stuff. But this end of this book certainly pulled me as a reader in all kinds of different directions.
Right.
And these two central characters are being kind of drawn and quartered to by their
Nice.
circumstance.
Yeah, and we want to look as well at the second appearance of Mercury
Yeah.
to Aeneas.
Right.
Because leading up to this point, so this is around about line 330 in the text of the poem itself. And we're going to read some Latin, we're going to read some of Lombardo's translation,
Yep.
maybe a little Crisac, and then analyze it. But we have another appearance of Mercury. The first appearance to Mercury comes to Aeneas in his sleep and says, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Traipsing around Carthage like a Tyrian, like a Phrygian prince. You get out of here and be concerned about your destiny.
Yeah.
If it's not for your own sake, think about your son Ascanius. Don't deprive him and of his right, his inheritance."
Yeah.
So Aeneas bolts awake, and then it's off.
And it's off, right? He starts saying, "Okay, get the ships ready." So I like this as Aeneas's commanders are getting the fleet ready. In Lombardo's translation, he says that Aeneas He's gonna find the proper occasion to break the news gently.
Right.
There's never a right time for this
Not
kind
for
of thing.
something like that.
Right. But they're not going to sneak away because Dido already kind of has a sense that something's going on. So Dave, give us a little Latin.
Yes.
Set that up.
I'd love to. So this is line 296. At regina de los quis fallera possit amantem, praesein sit motusquex capit prima futuros omnia tuta timains eadim pia fama furenti, detulit armardri classem cursumque parardri.
Very nice.
Can you read us the Lombardo?
Yeah, sure. It goes thusly. But the queen, our lovers ever really fooled, had a presentiment of treachery, fearing all, even when all seemed safe. She was the first to detect a shift in the wind. It was evil rumor who whispered that the fleet was preparing to set out to sea.
Very nice.
So there's that rumor that I think we talked about last episode, right?
Yes. And in many texts, it's capitalized because it's a personification.
Yes.
Right? Impia fama. And as you were saying in the last episode...
rumor is spreading out not just in Carthage, but beyond the kingdom.
Right.
Iarbas, one of the failed suitors of Dido, hears the word.
That's right.
And is very upset about
the
this.
Gaetulian nomadic king who was a son of Jupiter and wanted to marry her himself.
That's right. And so this is where kind of this sparks the madness.
Yes, the Bacchant.
The Bacchant, right? So she starts to rage throughout the city, and then we get this wonderful simile here. As wild and furious as a Aeneid when the holy mysteries have begun, her blood shaking when she hears the cry Bacchus. In the nocturnal frenzy on Mount Kithyron, in the mountain echoes the sacred call. This is thus Dido, right? So she's like a raving Aeneid in the throes of Dionysian ecstasy.
Yes, I love this Latin verb here.
Yeah.
Baccor, baccari, which means it's a deponent verb. It means to act like a Bacchant, like a follower of Bacchus.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is interesting about the comparison to a Aeneid, and here at the risk of seeing things that aren't really there.
Well, you're an academic, right?
Right.
That's our main job.
That's our main job, right? I think that the comparison at one sense is an easy one, right? We know what Aeneids do. They twirl about. They go crazy on the mountain. They're shouting. They're dancing. They're stomping their thyrsus.
Yeah, they follow that pine cone shaped thing that Bacchus is carrying.
Yeah, but at the same time, in doing so, they are worshiping a very powerful and a powerful God and going through meaningful mysteries.
Right.
And as I read the end of this book too, is even as Dido kind of prepares her own suicide, she makes sure that she's kind of religiously correct about it all. So I think that comparison has kind of a layeredness. On the top, oh yeah, she's crazy like a man, and we know what they do. But at the same time, well, what is the point of these mysteries? It's something solemn at the same time. So I think it can be those. It can be two things.
Interesting.
So, but after that comparison, Lombardo translates. So finally, she corners Aeneas and says,
"Oh, I like that. She corners Aeneas.
Yeah,
that's his translation of the verb compello, compellara, which means to speak forcibly to someone. Yeah. So that's really good.
That is very good, right?
Yeah. Dissimilaritiam sperdrasti perfida tantum. There's that vocative, right? How does he take that, Lombardo?
At the beginning of the speech, we are.
Yes.
Yeah. So traitor. Yes.
So if I can just dilate on that for a moment.
Yeah.
This is the adjective perfidus aum, which means faithless, right?
Yeah.
And this is the vocative that Dido hurls at Aeneas. You faithless one, you treacherous one.
Yeah.
I can think of some more colorful ways to translate it. But what's interesting is that the Romans were notorious for hating the Carthaginians for their punica fides. Remember?
That's right.
They had that fides, that honesty or loyalty, but it was a punica fides, a Carthaginian, which means you can't trust them no matter what they say.
Right.
They're liars, right? And the noun form of that is perfidia, right? Perfidia, faithlessness.
Yes.
So there's more than a little irony here in Dido hurling this kind of insult at Aeneas.
Yeah.
It's taking a cultural stereotype and applying it to those who are the ones that usually dole it out.
Right. That's fascinating. And that's one of the things I love about Virgil, right? So Aeneas is, almost in every book, he's being kind of taken down notch by notch by notch.
Right.
And in all the stuff that we associate with kind of the cartoonish glory or grandeur of Rome, we don't find it in Aeneas.
No.
And it's that Virgil says, it was a bloody thing to make this happen.
Correct.
It was a horrible thing to make this happen. Yeah.
Yep.
So, so Dido gives these two wonderful speeches.
Right.
And the first one I thought, it begins with, perfide, traitor, faithless one. It's full of passion, but it's also very heartbreaking. this first speech is she's kind of playing on emotions, and she's basically saying, hey, you were in the cave too, right? We're married,
right?
So it's very, it's beseeching, it's longing, it's full of emotion,
right?
And then once Aeneas kind of gives his very cold response, her second speech is just full of venom.
That's a good point.
And it just
rage,
right?
Right.
I mean, this is a strong speech, but the second speech is just full on Achillean rage.
And that's the one where she conjures up Hannibal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can make a demand on our audience here, something we don't normally do, I would like to read lines 307 and 308, which is part of Dido's speech here, because they are rhetorically brilliant. And I'm very curious to hear, I mean, I've read it, but I don't remember, what Lombardo does with this. But I think the effect, even in the Latin, will hit those who don't know Latin. So is that all right with you, Jeff?
Please do it.
Okay. Nec te noster amor, nec te data dextera quandam, nec moratura tenet crudeli, funera Dido. So we've got this anaphora, neck, 3 times, nec te, and right in the middle of it is noster amor, our love.
Yes.
So it's all very negative and staccato, hard consonant sounds.
Yeah.
As she spits out this speech of not quite anger yet, right?
Right.
You characterized it as sadness or despair?
It's despair. I mean,
okay.
But inflated with passion, right?
Right.
This is a balloon that's about to burst.
And how does Lombardo take those lines?
Right. Again, it's impossible to render this into English or any language and kind of keep that rapid fire staccato nature of it. So, traitor, did you actually hope to conceal this crime and sneak away without telling me? Does our love mean nothing to you? Does it matter that we pledged ourselves to each other? Do you care that Dido will die a cruel death? So I guess Lombardo frames it with kind of question after question after question. Right?
Yes, and it is at least one question. But in 307, there's the data dextera. So the dextera is the right hand, right? This is what he translates as pledge.
Yes.
But as good of a translation as that is, like you were saying, it's impossible to get it perfectly. I think something's lost there a little bit, because data dextera, right, the giving of the right hand.
Yeah.
It is kind of a formula for striking an agreement, but it's more intimate. In this sense,
yeah,
they were hand-holding lovers.
Yes,
and look what's happened.
Look what's happened. And here I come back to I can't remember what episode we did it in. Virgil does not give us the scene in the cave, right? He keeps that off stage, right. And so, which is of course now that hand grenade, the pin's been pulled, now it explodes here because we kind of get her side of it. And then Aeneas' side of it. So I mean, Dido basically says that that dextera, that pledge. That's a marriage,
right?
Weren't you there?
And he will say later,
I didn't sign anything.
No. Yeah. Cheap move.
Very cheap move.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So and so then she, it's the rest of the speech is very pleading, but there's also kind of she needles him too. She says, what? Okay, fine, leave, but it's terrible weather. This isn't sailing season. And she basically tells him, even if Troy were still standing, you wouldn't leave for Troy in this weather. What's the hurry? Right. And so she's kind of mocking him at the same time. And he never responds point to point to any of this stuff because in some ways he really can't.
So, Jeff, before we wrap up the first speech here of Dido, can you summarize a few of the remaining elements?
Sure. So, I mean, clearly Dido feels deeply for Aeneas. She considers themselves having been married, so that's very important. But she also reveals in this speech is that not only does she consider herself married to Aeneas, she put everything on the line with him. I sacrificed everything. She says
in terms of, you mean socio-political capital,
yes,
leadership, her credibility with her own people, all that kind of thing.
Right. So we remember that once Aeneas and Dido kind of got together, they stopped building walls, they stopped building towers. Everything kind of comes to a halt. And Dido basically says, okay, well, I'm all in with this guy.
Right.
And now she says, the Libyan warlords that surround New Carthage, they hate me. And even my own Tyrian people, they abhor me.
Propter te.
Yes.
Because of you. Look what you've done.
Right. So she has no honor. Right. So not only has she been, is her heart broken, but she's kind of lost everything. All of her clout, all of her political capital, she has spent it and it's gone. So it's kind of like, what am I supposed to do now?
She can't go back to her former group of friends.
Right.
Once she has dated someone who's outside the group.
Exactly. That's exactly right. There is something very high school about all of this.
I didn't say anything about high school,
Well,
but yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Exactly, right? This is something that we all recognize. And it's one of the reasons this still, packs a punch so many years later. Yeah.
Never been turned into a comic musical or anything, though.
It's ripe for that.
Like Grease or something in that vein.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of material there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does Dido mention anything that could assuage the struggle and the pain? Any kind of a trade-off or a compensation?
Yeah, she says at the end of this speech, she says, if only, if you'd left me pregnant.
Right.
And I have a child, and I'd have a little baby Aeneas running around these halls.
That's right.
Because if I had that, then maybe this would be okay.
I could live with it.
Right.
Yeah, she says it's a parvulus Aeneas, right?
A little Aeneas, right.
A mini Aeneas.
And she says it's not so much that she would have a baby, but she says this little baby would remind me of you. And so we kind of the last kind of living token of my lost love. At least I would have that.
That's a little grim, isn't it?
It's very grim. It's very desperate.
Right.
Right. And so that's more or less how she ends this speech. And as we'll see in her second speech, she goes into full rage mode, and she seems to be much more kind of she seems to have kind of made up her mind of kind of how she herself is going to end.
Okay.
And she's going to go out with a bang.
Right.
Yeah.
A blaze of glory, you might say.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
So that's the end of the first speech.
Yes.
And I think we've got time before the break. Mm-hmm. I know people tune in primarily for the ads. They think, what are those guys going to say next? How are they going to keep it fresh and lively?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It is a very good question.
Thankfully, we have a little time to think about it. But before we get there, we have his response, his first response.
Right. Which, as in Lombardo's translation, it's a brief reply.
Okay.
He's not as long-winded as Dido. Dido gets 2 speeches, and Aeneas gets 1.
Right.
Now, I want to. This struck me as I was reading this, and you can tell me if I'm way off the mark with this or not.
Well, I will.
Yeah, right.
I'm comfortable with that.
So, part of Aeneas' problem thus far is that we saw him stop in all of these places and, hey, this is New Troy. Nope, move on. Hey, this is New Troy. Nope, move on. Right? He's got to find his own path.
So is that indecisive or just hoping that the journey is over too soon?
Yeah, I think
it's the latter.
I think it's the latter as well.
He doesn't really want to go through the struggle.
Right, exactly right. And so I think what I saw here is this sounds very dissertation-y.
Okay. Is there a colon in it somewhere?
There's colons, baby.
And several abstract nouns?
Right, exactly. With some kind of gerund or gerundive in the title.
That's right.
Finding Aeneas, colon. Right? But it struck me that not only is Aeneas kind of stuck in Carthage and kind of not where he's supposed to be, but he's stuck in the wrong story. Because this exchange between Dido and Aeneas really reminded me a lot. And it wouldn't surprise me if Virgil had this in mind, is the exchange between Medea and Jason.
Oh, there are shades of tragedy all over.
Right.
And there'll be an explicit reference later to the Supper of Thyestes, the Atreus and Thyestes conflict.
Sure, right. But the kind of, the coldness of Jason to Medea when he basically says, hey, I know we've got a couple of kids and it's been great, right, but I've got to go with this. I've got to go marry into this family.
I got to marry into the Corinthian royalty. Right. So I'm just going to leave you.
And then Medea, like Dido, is kind of has that bottled anger at first, and then she just lets it all out.
That's right.
And so I'm trying to make the argument that Aeneas is kind of, he's stuck in somebody else's story.
Well, we had a reverse Penelope.
Yeah, we had a reverse, exactly. Right?
So how is Jason? How is Aeneas behaving here?
As he's just like Jason. He's not even a reverse Jason.
He's a Jason.
He's a Jason, right? And so he's got to get out of this. He's got to get out of this tragedy. He's got to get to his own story.
Would you say he's standing next to Jason?
He's adjacent. Oh man, that's brutal. But I love it.
Sorry, you challenged me at the beginning of this episode, right, Mr. Cranky Pants.
Yeah. I'm warming up.
All right,
I'm warming up. And then Dido too. I think when she goes off to her untimely end, and with her sister Anna, shades of Antigone and Ismene.
Absolutely.
Right? So she's stuck in the wrong story.
Both of those are Sophoclean.
Yes, exactly right.
Both of those are Sophoclean.
Right, and we have the reference to the Bacchae.
Right.
We'll see Dido is compared to Pentheus.
Yes.
So another tragic reference. Orestes, she's also compared to, and so.
And this is why Ovid said everybody loves Book 4, and that's it.
And that's it. Yeah.
Because it's tragedy.
Yeah.
The rest of it is epic. Good epic. This is full on tragedy.
Right. So I think that's so my argument here is that Aeneas is not at root a tragic character.
He's in the wrong story.
He's in the wrong story. And so he's got to leave, but everybody else dies.
Are there only two genres, though? If it's not epic, it's either tragedy or comedy, right?
Right.
And the Aristotelian definition of tragedy, people behaving better than they do in real life.
Right.
And the Aristotelian definition of comedy, people behaving worse.
Worse. Yeah.
So is Jason a comic figure? Did I say Jason?
Aeneas.
Is Aeneas a comic figure?
Well, I think he's a comic figure. Then ultimately, his path leads to life. I think also, comedy you could also define. Comedies end with a wedding. Tragedies end with a funeral.
Right.
Comedies are about life. Tragedies are about death. Mm-hmm. And so in that, Aeneas's path is leading towards life and leaving this death behind. It's comic. Not that he's going to make us laugh. He's not a very funny guy.
Okay, so let's combine here pop culture and pedantry. Can we do that?
I think we can do it.
All right.
Yeah.
So there was a movie that I haven't seen.
Okay.
4 Weddings and a Funeral. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen it.
I have not seen it.
Oh, you haven't?
Hugh Grant, right?
Do they call that a chick flick?
It never looked like it was my cup of tea, but I remember the splash it made. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think that there's a word in Plautus, the Roman playwright, tragicomedia, a tragic comedy. Mm-hmm. So if tragedies end in a funeral and comedies in a wedding, then that movie would be a tragic comedy.
Tragic comedy.
4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Right. Good. Yes. Very good. I mean, like the Alcestis.
Yes.
Right?
But what do we have here? We have 1 no wedding and 1 funeral.
Well, Dido thinks it's a wedding.
Right.
So it's a semi-wedding.
So
and a funeral.
There's the rub. right. She has both tragedy and comedy.
Yes.
She has a wedding and a funeral, but they're in the wrong order.
Yes, exactly.
And Aeneas, he has neither.
He's neither. Right. He's kind of standing aloof on the sidelines.
So he's in the wrong story.
He's in the wrong story. And so he's got to get out of book 4 and he's got to get back into his proper story.
Shall we warm up a little bit of Aeneas's response speech, the first response speech?
Yes.
Okay, let me read a few lines of the Latin here, and then you can go to town on Lombardo, please. Dixerat ille vis monetissem otit nebat, luminet obnixus curdram subcorda premebat, tandem pauca refert ego te quae plurum affondo, e numerar revales numquam regina negabo. Notice Virgil rhymes those 2 lines at the end, which is very uncommon in epic poetry, as you know.
Yeah, it sounds weird.
It does.
Yeah.
So can you read us what Lombardo
Sure.
has there? Lombardo, right?
Lombardo.
Negabo fondo Lombardo.
Dido finished. Aeneas, Jupiter's message still ringing in his ears, held his eyes steady and struggled to suppress the love in his heart. He finally made this brief reply. My queen, I will never deny that you have earned my gratitude in more ways than can be said. Nor will I ever regret having known Ilissa as long as memory endures and the spirit still rules these limbs of mine. I think that's kind of really interesting language that he uses there. So, my queen, it's very formal. Mm-hmm. And he speaks of her in the third person.
Yes.
Right?
He does address her as Regina.
Regina.
In response to her perfide, right? Traitor, treacherous.
Right. But this is not a term of endearment, right? I mean,
No,
it's
distant.
It's very distant. Right.
And maybe partially motivated by fear. Is that possible? It's time to stop acting like this is a personal relationship and seek a kind of détente of cultures. Is that going too far?
No, I don't know.
Am I the one who now is seeing things that aren't there?
No, I like this.
As it moves away from romance, he's got to reestablish diplomacy.
Right.
Or else risk being crushed.
Exactly.
Because he's still needy.
This is Anderson. He's got to lay down facts, and it's facts over feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say that Lombardo chose to translate the word love. He tried to, what was it? Tried to squelch love.
Suppress the love in his heart.
Yes, but the word there is kuram, which is a little broader. It can include love, but it's more something like apprehension. So again, who am I to criticize Lombardo? It is a brilliant translation.
Right.
But translating it as love, it probably tips a modern audience in the wrong direction.
Right. That's really key here too. I mean, when I read that, my mind paused on that, right? Because that says so. If it is love, as we kind of understand
Correct.
it, that says something about kind of Aeneas being torn here. But if it's kuram, you said?
Yes, it's kuram.
There's many different ways I think you could take that.
Right. He was pushing it down in his heart.
Yes. Yeah. That's
so I think
really interesting.
apprehension is not very poetic, but or anxiety. Because that opens up the possibility that he's not so much concerned about how she'll take it, as to what will happen to him if she takes it wrong.
Exactly, which I think is that's the way this reads to me.
Right. So in Anderson's interpretation, This is not the heroic squelching of emotion if it really is affection that he's trying to hold down.
Yes. Let me read a little bit more of Lombardo's translation here. So, in here he just it's like he brings out the clipboard and he's got his checklist here. He says, I do have a few things to say on my own behalf.
Yes, can we stop there a second?
Yes.
Because the line, this is line 337. For those of you who study Latin, you want to take out a pencil and a notebook here, may I humbly suggest, and write this one down because this is a great line. Pro re pauca loquar. I will say a few things. Pauca loquar. Pro re, right? On behalf of the case or in my defense. That's a great phrase. Pro re pauca loquar.
So it's courtroom language.
Exactly. It's very, very quotable.
That's great. And so here he starts laying out the facts. He says, I never hoped to steal away from your land in secret.
That's 1.
And you should never imagine I did.
2.
Nor have I ever proposed marriage to you or entered into any nuptial agreement.
3 and 4.
If the fates would allow me to lead my own life and to order my priorities as I see fit, the welfare of Troy would be my first concern, and the remnants of my own beloved people.
That's 5 and maybe 6.
Right.
Troyan people.
So he's barely mentioned her at all.
Right. So is he pitching woo here?
Pitching woo?
Don't you know the phrase pitch woo?
Oh, no, no, I don't know that at all. What is that?
I'm surprised at you, Winkle.
W-O-O? Woo?
Yeah, to pitch woo.
What does that mean?
This is how a man speaks lovingly to a woman in order to win her affections to his side.
Oh, I was just as wooing. As one woos. I've never heard you don't pitch it.
I think you can.
All right.
You can pitch woo. You can turpentine it. I think there's a wide variety
There's many things that you can do with the woo.
Anyway.
All right. So, no, he's not. I don't think he's pitching woo here at all. It's quite the opposite.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm trying to draw attention to the fact that there's nothing
There's no woo.
loving or kind in here. It's pro re pauca loquar.
Right. And basically he's saying, like, I love this too. He says, if the fates would allow me to lead my own life, you're kind of expecting I would happily run off with you, but that's not what he says.
He doesn't care about her at all.
And he says, no, he says, my priorities are with my own people. Right. So
I wish Troy still stood.
Yes.
Rule my people.
Rule my people. So,
that's hard.
That
you
is really
think
hard.
This is part of what turns her from despair to rage?
I think so too. I mean, it is very, very cold, right? And someone in the throes of passion and emotion aren't going to say, "Oh, that sounds very logical. I'll accept that and simmer down."
Yes.
Right.
Well, this is my point at the beginning, right? What do you say to a person who's crazily in love with you if the answer is
No.
unrequited?
Right.
Maybe to speculate here, this is why these conversations seldom happen, right? People just more kind of drift apart because
They ghost each other.
that's right.
Yeah.
They're left unread.
Yes. Exactly.
'Cause
Wow.
if-
Listen to you with the hip lingo.
I'm clutch.
Yeah.
What can I say? I learned that word this week.
What, on red?
No, clutch.
Clutch. Is that what the kids are saying?
That's what they're saying. It's clutch.
Clutch. I like that.
I think Lombardo is clutch when it comes to translating Latin.
Without a doubt.
So one party is very, very keen. The other party is not. They just don't talk.
Yeah.
Because it ends up looking like this.
Right. So I think one of the questions that this also raises too is what Aeneas says here, is this what pushes her over the edge?
I think so.
Right. And again, that question that even within the strictures of fate, what you do between point A and point B, there's a lot of free will there.
Yes.
So the thing in the cave didn't have to happen.
Okay.
Aeneas could have said something different here. Dido could have made another choice. And so I think that the excuse of, well, this is all fated, doesn't quite get you to a satisfying end or an interpretation of what this book is all about.
Let's get right to the end of the speech because he will invoke divine agency as an excuse for his own behavior. And this is line 358. De tulatipsa deum manifestin lumina vidi, intrantem murderos vocem quis ardribus hausi. Which is, I myself saw the God in the open air, manifest in lumina. How does Lombardo take it?
I saw the God myself in broad daylight.
Broad daylight.
Yep.
That's better than what I said.
Yeah, entering the walls and heard his very words. So stop wounding both of us with your pleas.
Right.
It is not my own will, this quest for Italy.
Yes.
So there Aeneas is saying, this is
exactly.
fate.
That's
what do you want me to do?
That's right.
Right.
He says the park guy, right, they rolled by in their El Camino.
That's right.
I'm trying to make that into a running gag or a rolling gag.
So all three of them are in the front of the El Camino?
How many seats are there?
It's a small cab. One of them could be in the back.
It's like a pickup, isn't it?
Yeah,
So it's like a mini pickup.
It's like a car pickup. It's very liminal. It's very unsettling.
So
yeah.
what's in the back?
Well, I think one of the park I could be in the back. You get 2 up front and 1 in the back.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know which one.
Probably the third one, Atropos.
The one who
Cuts the thread. She's got to be sitting in the back. I think so, because she's got those giant scissors. They're not going to fit in the cab.
No, exactly. She's back there with the scissors.
That's right.
I like it.
So he wraps up and says, I drank it in, housey. I drank him in as he entered the walls and his voice with my ears, right? I soaked it up, housey. So stop firing me up in Kendera. So there's the verb. Foreshadowing, foreflaming.
Oh, it is a little bit of, not just a little bit of foreflaming there.
It's a lot of foreflaming because we know about Dido's grisly demise.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
And he says finally, I go to Italy. I'm headed to Italy. Non sponte. It's not my own decision.
Is that my own idea? Yeah.
No. So persuaded?
No, I'm not persuaded.
No, I think he's a cad.
He is a cad. I think there's wiggle room enough here that he could have done this differently. He could have handled this in a better fashion. I'm sticking with that.
Okay.
That's where I am.
Speaking of handling things in a better fashion,
yes?
It's time for the ads.
It is.
All right, Jeff, I've got one word for you.
Okay.
Brackish tang.
That's 2 words.
Say them quickly.
Brackish tang.
There you go.
Okay.
What am I talking about?
You're talking about what you won't find in a cup of coffee brewed by ratio.
Yes. That is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I remember seemed like 2 years ago. It was 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing some episodes on, what were we doing some episodes on?
It was on Thermopylae, right?
Yes, A Lion at the Gates, part 1 and 2. We were using the brilliant book by Peter Green.
Yes.
The Greco-Persian Wars. And he was talking about how Leonidas and the Spartans were approaching the gates of Thermopylae.
Yeah.
And what was wafting up out of the Euboean Straits?
A brackish tang.
A brackish tang.
Yes, yeah.
Which would ruin their shields and their spears and their swords and so forth by rusting stuff out.
Yeah, yeah.
What don't you want rusted out and corroded?
My coffee.
Your coffee maker and your coffee.
Yes.
So who has solved this problem?
I believe it's Ratio Coffee, right? Mark Hellwig.
That's right.
And his crack team.
Can you tell us more about it?
Yes. Well, I have the Ratio 8. I used to have the Ratio 6.
You went up 2 ratios.
Went up 2 ratios. I have the granddaddy now. I had the little brother.
Yeah. Did you skip the 7?
Is there a 7?
No.
There's no 7. You go from 6 to the 8. Just
right.
even numbers for ratio. I love my machine. Every morning, brews the perfect cup of coffee. I've got the hand-blown borosilicate carafe.
Nice. For the pour-over?
For the pour-over.
Doesn't Mrs. Winkle say that's the nicest pour she's seen?
It is, exactly. She loves the way the carafe just kind of, it's a work of art just to watch that coffee come out. Yeah.
Are you just a poor boy also?
But my story's seldom told?
No.
What?
No, that's Queen.
What? Oh, I see. You're doing.
You were going to Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, you were doing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right? Was that Simon and Garfunkel?
It was. Yeah,
Okay.
the boxer. Yeah.
See, I know something.
You do know something. We don't even have our pop cultural references lined
come
up.
on, let's
right?
go.
Okay. So no, I love every morning. You got the what's the Fahrenheit? How many degrees?
200 degrees
200
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit coming out of
water boils at 212.
It's
So we're just right at the boiling point.
yes. So after the bloom stage, there's none of the nasty CO2 hanging around.
It's like the Dido of coffee makers, right? It goes from nothing to exploding volcanically.
Like that.
Right.
Like that. Yep.
But noxious fumes waft off into the biosphere.
They're off gassed, and then all that's left is the scalding hot pour over. And
There's no scalding.
It's hot.
Okay, it's hot.
It's hot, but there's no scorch pad.
There's no scorch pad, no Kindle brick.
No, none of that. None of that. Perfect cup of coffee every single morning.
No, I brew directly into a hulking flagon.
Really?
Yes, I have skipped the borosilicate glass.
Why would you do
It's
that?
beautiful, but I can't drink all of my coffee by myself at once. I'm the only coffee drinker in my family.
Really?
So I always brew directly into the hulking flagon, which has an oyster color to match the oyster and walnut accents of my Ratio 8.
And you just carry that thing around all day?
Well, I have a special rubber plug that you put in the top. It keeps the coffee very, very warm. Mm-hmm. And of course, these days here in Michigan, it's been very hot. It has been pretty much hot. Insufferably. So sometimes what I do is I get a large glass of ice and I pour this delicious sweet coffee over the ice, and I got iced coffee. Like the French say, viola, iced coffee.
Viola. Exactly right, man. You are the multilinguist, aren't you? So, Dave, if our listeners want to get in on this, what should they do?
They should go to ratiocoffee.com. Ratio is a Latin word, R-A-T-I-O, coffee.com. And they should enter the special coupon code.
It was ANCO7C.
Why does it seem like you're trying to remember? It's the August coupon code.
Yes.
ANCO. Ad nauseum coffee. ANCO7C. 15% off. Check it out.
This episode of Ad Nauseam also brought to you by Hackett Publishing. Dave, I believe it's the 50th anniversary for that company.
Absolutely.
Yep. They've got their
Offices is what you're looking for.
Yes, in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Cambridge, Massachusetts.
That's correct.
And for the last 50 years, they have been putting out volume after volume of incredible translations and commentaries from all corners of academia, especially the classics, especially, but from many other different disciplines as well. You and I have several of their volumes on our shelves. We've used them personally. We've used them in class. I love Hackett. Dave, what do you like about Hackett?
Well, I like everything about them. I like the fact that they promote this podcast, and not only for selfish pecuniary reasons do I like that. I like the fact that they are behind the classics, and they want to see this lovely body of knowledge preserved, extended, and for it to reach more people who can enjoy it.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
We approached them with this idea. We're trying to popularize the classics. They said, we're on board.
Yeah.
And they haven't fallen off board since.
You know, what really impressed me is when we first got in contact with them, we weren't put off and say, "Oh, you've got to talk to this flunky who's going to connect you with this flunky."
No.
We got right to the top, and they were laid back, and they were saying, "This sounds like a great idea. We're going to take a chance on you guys."
Excellent. Yes. And I want to talk about some new titles that they have coming out.
Yes.
So they have a new title this fall from Stanley Burstein, and this is The Essential Greek Historians, a collection of texts representing the development of historiography in the ancient Greek world. Now, I don't know a lot about this, probably less than you, but there's a definite development between, say, Herodotus and Thucydides, from Thucydides to Polybius, Polybius to Plutarch, and that's what this book covers. So a fascinating topic. They also have new Plato and Aristotle translations from David Reeve. They've got Plato's Laws, Aristotle's Chemistry. That guy knew something about making coffee, I think.
Oh, without a doubt.
And Aristotle's Theology. So these are going to be on the Hackett website very soon. They're a part of the Aristotle series.
Yes, so listeners, go to hackettpublishing.com. That's HACKETT publishing.com. Check out their wide variety, their huge selection there. Find the text that you want, drop them into your little digital satchel. And Dave, what's the coupon code?
The coupon code is simple. It's AN, ad nauseum, 2022.
22. And if and when you do that, will get you 20% off.
Plus
free shipping.
Free shipping.
Free shipping. That's huge.
It's incredible.
Yep. So check it out. All right, Dave, as we get back into it, I believe you've got some more wisdom from Mr. Anderson.
Yes, William Anderson, The Art of the Aeneid, page 52. The seeming coolness of Aeneas only fires Dido. Nice antithesis. His rationality only begets irrationality in her. This is what you were saying, Jeff.
Yeah.
Her second speech uses the conventional phrases of the abandoned woman to deny Aeneas all humanity, pour scorn on his reasonable statements, and finally allude to her imminent death. As if to confirm her complete lack of self-control, Virgil describes her sudden collapse at the end. Aeneas consequently cannot reply to her wild accusations, but must watch her being carried from the room unanswered, uncomforted. It is the last moment he sees her alive. With this dramatic interruption, Virgil destroys the balance of speeches. Aeneas cannot justify himself to Dido or restore her to rationality.
So, for better or for worse, well, worse here, Dido gets the last word. So I think she wins this kind of rhetorical battle, so to speak. But she's going off to her death, and Aeneas is going off to this new life,
and a new wife, and a new land, and all of that sort of
all
thing.
that kind of stuff. But the language here is so fiery and so impassioned. Shall I give a bit of the beginning in Lombardo's translation?
Yes, please.
So she says it's just I'll back up a little bit. So while he's speaking, she looks him up and down. With icy sidelong glances, stares at him blankly, and then erupts into volcanic fury.
That's good.
Isn't that good?
It's a sic accensa profatur. Thus lit up accensa. Remember that he said at the end of his speech, don't get all burnt, right? Necte incendere. Now she's burnt, and then she starts profatur.
She starts breathing fire. She says, your mother was no goddess, you faithless bastard. And you aren't descended from Dardanus either. No, you were born out of the flint in the Caucasus and suckled by tigers in the wild of Scythia.
If I may interrupt.
Yes.
What Lombardo translates there as faithless, was that it? Faithless bastard?
Yeah.
It's perfida again.
It's the same word.
It's the same vocative from perfidus.
Interesting. It's so interesting.
So that's the theme she's developing, Historically, you Romans think we Carthaginians are liars? No, the lie's on the other foot.
Right. And so the whole... the whole enmity between Rome and Carthage here starts here.
That's right.
And the first act of perfidy, according to Dido, is
on the part of the Romans.
The Proto-Roman here.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this is really interesting, too, and I'm guessing that this reflects the Latin. Dido almost kind of backs up, and she almost speaks to herself here. She says, why should I hold back? Did he sigh as I wept? Did he even look at me? Did he give into tears or show any pity for the woman who loved him? So she's speaking to him almost as if he's not even there.
Yes.
And so she kind of dehumanizes him. That's even right. As she's speaking to him.
Well, she previously, said he was the son of a tiger, right?
Right.
Some mountain or some tiger suckled you. That's the kind of a monster you are.
Right.
We don't really use animals so much anymore in our insults. Because we're no longer an agricultural society, do we?
No, you don't really. Like, you dirty dog.
Right.
No,
the people don't say those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Huh.
But Dido does get to the point where she kind of throws up her hands and finally says, okay, go. That's it. Just get out of here.
Yeah.
And this is line 381 and following. E sequeri taliam ventis peta regna per undas, spare equidem medici quid pia numina possunt, supplicia haudrusum scopolis et nomina Dido, saipe vocaturum. And we'll just stop right there.
Yeah.
And how does Lombardo take those?
So he translates, sail to Italy, find your kingdom overseas, but I hope, if there is any power in heaven, you will suck down your punishment on rocks in mid-ocean, calling Dido's name over and over. Gone I may be, but I'll pursue you with black fire, and when cold death has cloven my body from my soul, my ghost will be everywhere. You will pay, you despicable liar, and I will hear the news. Word will reach me in the depths of hell.
Interesting. That's great.
Right.
And the vocative here, improbe, is different than the two previous ones, the perfida previous ones, the perfida.
Is this the you despicable liar?
Yes, that's improbe. You dishonest, you dirty dog.
You dirty dog, yeah.
But it's building, right? I would say that this is an interesting word choice on Virgil's part because it's building. It goes well with your earlier claim that the first speech was grief, the second speech is rage.
Yes. Yeah. But it also kind of reminded me of the Cyclops curse of Odysseus here. Right? So you remember that Cyclops says to Poseidon, I know he's fated to get home. My first choice is he doesn't get home. Right. But if he has to get home, then may there be misery between here and there. And Dido says a simple kind of thing: sail to Italy, but I hope that there's going to be shipwrecks.
That's right.
And I'm gonna, my ghost is gonna follow you on your heels every step of the way.
Yeah. So this is Odyssey Book 9.
Yeah.
Right. It's all fun and games till somebody pokes an eye out.
That's right.
That was the name of the episode.
It's a great one. Go listen to it.
Yeah, that's the title you gave it, if
Was
I'm
it?
not mistaken.
Yeah,
of
that
course.
sounds like me.
Yeah. I will hear, she says, 387. And the fama, right, will come to me. The report will come to me in deepest hell.
Yeah, and there's a little foreshadowing there as well because we do see Dido again.
Book 6.
Book 6, as a shade, as a ghost.
And of course, there as a ghost, she ghosts him.
She literally ghosts him as a ghost. Yeah,
that's right. It's a replay of the Achilles and Odysseus.
Yes, or Achilles.
No, I'm sorry.
Odysseus and Ajax.
Odysseus and Ajax.
Yes,
thank
in the
you.
underworld. Yeah, right.
Another brilliant move on Virgil's part, but we got to get to Book 6 before we can talk about
That's right. Yeah, we're getting ahead of things.
That's right. Yeah. So how does Aeneas respond to this?
Well,
Aut pius Aeneas, but pious Aeneas. There's that adjective again.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Anderson's squelching of all passion for the sake of heroism.
Yes. So Lombardo's he translates pios here as loyal and true. Aeneas, loyal and true, yearns to comfort her. Mm-hmm. Soothe her grief and say the words that will turn aside her sorrow. He sighs heavily, although great love, there's that word again, has shaken his soul. He obeys the god's will and returns to the fleet. Yeah,
so here I think he gets the palm, Lombardo does, because pius Aeneas, sometimes it's wise to translate one Latin adjective with two English ones. What was it? Loyal and trustworthy?
Loyal and true, yeah.
Yeah, loyal and true. And then the verb, cupit, he has a longing, although he truly desires, cupit, to soothe her grieving. And then there's the kuros again. And what is turn aside her anxiety.
Turn aside her sorrow. Yeah.
Her sorrow with his words. But then the word amore does really appear here.
It does.
Unlike in the previous passage.
Okay.
So labafactus, animum labafactus, right? Having fallen in his soul with great love.
So that humanizes Aeneas in the moment.
He does.
Here, right?
So see, Jeff, he's not so bad. So not such a cad.
He pities her. He loves her, but he also recognizes that there's nothing he can do anymore in the moment.
And why? He's got to obey the divine commands.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really talk very much about whether his devotion to piety, in terms of I must do what the gods tell me, make him a better or worse character. I think for most people, makes him a worse character.
Makes him a worse character. I think it's hard to see it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fleet, the ships and the men start getting ready, and the simile here, Aeneas or Virgil uses, he compares them to ants.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Swarming all over the shores and, and
beautiful.
the decks. Yep, it's great.
It's black ants, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're rushing from the city, something like that. They're going along the path.
Yeah. And then this is the where Virgil breaks in with the apostrophe.
Mm-hmm.
And in Lombardo's words, what was it like, Dido, to see all this? What sighs escaped your lips when from your high tower you saw the shoreline crawling with Trojans and the sea roiled with the shouts of sailors? And he just kind of wonders what she's feeling in that moment, which is, again, quite interesting. Is if we think of Virgil as kind of the omniscient author here, he should be able to tell us exactly what Dido is feeling, right?
Well, he's suggesting it to the reader by asking Dido the question, to the audience.
But he's also kind of suggesting that it's something. It's so
you're right.
It's so deep. It's so private that not even the narrator himself can get there.
Right. Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah.
It would be inappropriate for him to discuss her emotions because it's too mysterious.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe too painful. Right.
He also brings up improbamor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dishonest love, or faithless love. How does Lombardo take those lines?
Cruel love.
Cruel.
Yes. What do you not force human hearts to bear?
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, if you're a student of Latin and you have a pencil and paper and you want to remember a very gorgeous line, this is 412. Improbamor quid non mortalia pectora cogis, right? What is it? I've forgotten already. He took improba. Wicked?
Cruel.
Cruel.
Yes.
Cruel love. You compel mortals, right? You compel mortals to remember these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Great, powerful stuff. This goes well. This is to me, this is way beyond Homer in many ways. Homer doesn't get that personal.
It's probably because tragedy has intervened.
Yes.
Virgil can draw on the great Greek tragedians. They hadn't
been written yet.
Yes.
Right.
They themselves drew from Homer.
Right.
So now what happens? Now Dido speaks to Anna.
Yes. And so she's watching all this from her tower, and she says to, look at them, Anna. Look at them scuttling across the shore, streaming down from every direction. The canvas can hardly wait for the breeze. So she said, these soldiers are so, these ants, they can't wait to get going. And that's just another kind of, knife in the back for her. Right. And so, she's preparing, she's starting to prepare for her own death. So it's this, so in speaking to Anna, it strikes me as kind of has that coolness that Aeneas had just a moment ago. So again, she's kind of left her venom behind, and now she's kind of more like on the path, I've made a decision, and I'm going to take this to its conclusion.
Yes, well, and part of the reason that she is so aloof from her sister is that she must deceive her sister.
Yes.
So that her sister not prevent her from taking her own life.
Right.
So that's how she's filling the Aeneas role, because Aeneas was also engaged in a deception, right? As we talked about in the last episode, let's just sneak away under cover of night, and then Dido wakes up and we're all gone, and nobody's the wiser. It's no problem.
Right.
She now must do the same thing to Anna.
Yeah.
And it's treacherous.
It's very treacherous. And that, again, it reminds me very much of the relationship between Antigone and Ismene, right? Antigone insists on going to kind of her martyrdom alone.
Correct.
And
has great contempt for her sister. You're too weak to die for the family. I'm the only one brave enough to do this.
Exactly. Even when Ismene says, don't leave me here. Let me go with you.
Right. No, too late. You had your chance to show my brother loyalty.
This is my
you
trip.
Lost it.
Yep. Exactly. So there's definitely shades of that too. And I would be very surprised if a Roman audience wouldn't have seen at least a glimmer of that here.
Well, I think this is part of the reason why in the quote that we read, William Anderson describes this as the conventional language of the abandoned woman in the speech. So the conventionality is Greek tragedy.
Yeah. But
it looks, Jeff, like we are up against the clock.
Oh man, we can't even get to the end of book 4 here?
No, we can't. We're on line only 400 or 500. There's another 300 lines here.
Yeah, we can't. You're right. We can't
We can't give that its just due. She's got to climb onto the pyre that she has piled up on the top of the citadel. She has to look out at the harbor. She's got to fall on. Am I giving away too much?
You might get. Save this for next time.
Okay,
We don't have time to talk about this. Yeah.
So we're gonna have to look at book 4 in the next episode, and I guess if the audience doesn't like that, they don't have to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
We can. I suppose we can segue into book 5 at that point.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right. But Jeff, before we thank some people, can we talk Moss Method for a minute?
Yeah, let's talk Moss Method.
Okay, so we got a big sale coming up. It begins August 15. And you go to mossmethod.com, and I think I'm giving 10% off. Yeah, 10% off the Moss Method for Greek.
That's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
And you get the office hours. We're holding them tomorrow. You get to meet with me and Greek students from around the world, California, Australia, Hong Kong, Ireland, here in the United States, lots of different places, and study some Greek.
Fantastic.
So if you want to take your Greek from not too much to a whole lot.
No, that's how it goes.
How does it go?
It goes from neophyte to erudite.
If you want to take your Greek from neophyte to erudite, this is the way to do it. You want to read Plato, the New Testament, we run the gamut.
That sounds fantastic. They go to mossmethod.com.
That's correct.
There's lots of free stuff they can check out.
Free stuff.
Yep.
And I also have a Latin course you'd probably like me to share.
Do tell.
Okay, so it's latinperdiem.com/LLPSI, Lingua Latina per se illustrata. And this is where I take students through the Hans Orberg text, the classic Familia Romana book. It's $199. I think we have 22 video lessons now, ranging from 30 minutes to an hour, plus some 20 office hours recorded. Lots of audio. I mean, there's really no reason not to learn Latin once you tap into this resource.
Fantastic. So they can find that at latinperdiem.com.
/LLPSI.
There we go.
Okay. We got some people to thank, don't we, Jeff?
Yes, we do. As always, Mishka, our intrepid engineer, puts it all together, makes us sound better than we actually are.
Yeah, people say this podcast sounds good, that the audio quality is good. I mean, the content, forget about it.
Yeah,
but the audio, they like the quality, so that's Mishka.
That's
thankful.
That's all Mishka. Thanks a lot. We got Scott Van Zen and Ken Tamplin for the great music.
That's right.
That you hear throughout the episode.
Yes. Those ripping guitars, you got to check out Scott Van Zen's music lessons, learn how to play the guitar like he does. Mm-hmm. Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy.
Learn how to sing like he does.
Yes, incredible. Yeah. And so we want to hear from you. Send us some shout outs. Send us some suggestions for episodes. We've got some great suggestions recently. We're going to go back to Virgil for next week. Then we're going to take a little break.
We are going to take a little break.
Take a little break and do something different. We're going to key up something different just to give a little bit of a respite from Virgil, because you can't appreciate literature of this quality just nonstop.
Exactly. It's like binge watching a show. You got to take it you got to watch it, one a week.
You got to pause a little bit.
Pause. That's the way you remember. That's the way you appreciate it. Yes.
In addition to sending us email, should they get a T-shirt?
Of course.
Yes. What do the T-shirts say?
You can get it's quae nocent docent.
That's right, from Erasmus.
Yeah.
With a lovely picture of Hercules holding up the world or wrestling a lion.
Yeah.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Quae nocent docent.
Exactly right. Yeah. Check those out. They're really sharp looking. If you want to support us and if you want to kind of advertise the podcast, we would love it. If you would buy one of those.
You can find those at adnauseum.com. Don't forget the V, and also at latinperdiem.com.
That's right.
And Jeff, I think that's it. You have the gustatory parting shot.
I do, and this comes from one of my favorites, Jim Gaffigan, from his book, Food, A Love Story. He writes, there are people who eat only organic food, and then there are people who don't have tons of money to eat.
I love it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.